It was 10:30 a.m. on a sunny morning in April 1941, when 15-year-old Gian left her home in a small village near Busan, Korea. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, a rare moment of beauty in a time of uncertainty. Gae-han, the eldest daughter in a family of 7, often helped her mother with household chores while dreaming of a future where she could attend school and perhaps become a teacher. The occupation had brought changes to their daily life, with new languages and rules, but the family held on to their traditions as best they could. As she walked to the market to buy rice, a man in a neat suit stopped her. "Miss, you look like a smart girl," he said with a warm smile. "There's an opportunity for young women like you to work in a factory in Manchuria. The pay is excellent enough to support your family for years. You'll have good food, a place to stay, and even training. Many girls from your area have already gone and are sending money home. What do you say? It's a chance to change your life." Jian's heart raced with excitement. Her family struggled, and this seemed like an answer to their prayers. The man assured her that it was approved by the authorities and safe. He even offered to speak to her parents, but in her eagerness, she agreed to join a group leaving that evening. "Don't worry, you'll be back in a few years. Richer and wiser," he added. That evening at 7:45 p.m., Jian packed a small bag with a few clothes and a photo of her family. She left a note for her parents, explaining her decision. The truck picked her up along with 10 other girls, all nervous but hopeful. The ride to the port took hours, filled with songs and stories to calm the nerves. By midnight, they boarded a ship bound for China. The sea journey lasted 3 days. The waves rocked the vessel, and the girls huddled together, sharing stories of home. Gae-han felt a mix of fear and adventure. "This is my chance," she thought. But as the ship docked in a Chinese port on April 18, 1941, at dawn, the atmosphere changed. Armed guards met them, and the girls were herded onto another truck. The landscape was unfamiliar, with mountains and fields stretching endlessly. They arrived at a compound in a rural area of occupied China at 2 p.m. that day. The building was plain, with rows of small rooms. "Welcome to your new workplace," a woman in uniform announced. But there were no machines, no factory sounds. Instead, the girls were given uniforms and told the rules: no leaving without permission, strict schedules, and serving the needs of the soldiers who were fighting in the region. The shocking reality hit Gae-han like a wave. This was not the factory she had imagined. The promises were empty. As the sun set that evening, the compound filled with the sounds of arriving soldiers. Gae-han sat in her small room, tears streaming down her face. "What have I done?" she whispered. The other girls looked equally terrified. In that moment of despair, Gae-han made a silent vow. "I will survive. I will see my family again, no matter what it takes." Her journey of survival had just begun, one that would test the limits of human endurance in the chaos of war. This young girl's experience was not an isolated incident, but part of a much larger historical context that unfolded during the years of conflict in Asia. The Japanese military had established a presence in Korea since 1910. When the peninsula was annexed as a colony, over the decades various policies were implemented that affected the daily lives of the people, including requirements for learning the Japanese language and adapting to new administrative systems. The family of Gae-han, like many others, navigated these changes while trying to maintain their cultural identity and livelihood. When the conflict escalated with the invasion of China in 1937, the military presence in the region to support the troops stationed in occupied territories, the authorities set up a network of comfort stations, beginning in some areas as early as 1932. These stations were intended to offer a form of recreation and to help maintain discipline among the soldiers away from their homes. Women and girls from Korea, China, and other occupied regions were brought into this system through different methods. Some were attracted by advertisements or recruiters promising good jobs in factories or as support staff, while others were taken in situations where resistance was difficult due to the circumstances of war. In the case of many Korean women, the recruitment often involved local intermediaries who convinced families or the girls themselves of the benefits. In China, the system grew amid the ongoing battles, with stations established near military bases and in cities under control. The transportation involved trains, ships, and trucks, moving the women across long distances to their assigned locations. The scale of the system was significant, with historical estimates indicating that tens of thousands to as many as 200,000 women and girls may have been involved, the majority from Korea and China. The stations were often located in strategic areas to be close to the troops, and the daily routine for the women involved following schedules set by the management. Medical checks were conducted to address health concerns, but the overall environment was one of restriction and uncertainty. The women formed bonds with each other, sharing small moments of comfort in the midst of hardship. These connections sometimes helped them cope with the separation from their families and the unfamiliar surroundings. This event holds importance because it illustrates the profound effects of wartime policies on civilian populations, particularly the young women caught in the midst of expansion and conflict. The stories from this period shed light on the challenges faced by those who were displaced and confined, highlighting themes of loss, adaptation, and the search for hope in difficult times. For the women who survived, the experiences left deep marks, including physical ailments and emotional burdens that they carried for decades. The end of the war in 1945 brought liberation for many, but the path to returning home was not always straightforward. Some remained in the places where they had been stationed, rebuilding their lives in new environments. The testimonies that emerged years later, such as the first public account in 1991 by a survivor who described the conditions as not a place for humans, helped bring these hidden stories to wider attention. These accounts emphasized the resilience of the women who lived through the ordeal and their determination to ensure that their experiences were remembered as part of the broader history of the war. Understanding the background of this system provides context for the individual stories of survival, like that of G. It reminds us of the human elements within historical events, the personal struggles, and the ways in which people found strength to endure. The importance lies in preserving these narratives so that future generations can learn from the past and appreciate the courage of those who survived against the odds. The first weeks blurred into a nightmare of routine and pain. Each morning at 6 a.m., a bell rang sharply through the compound. Jian and the other girls, now around 20 in number, mostly Korean, Afao Chinese, were forced to line up for inspection. A Japanese military doctor, using basic tools like speculums and thermometers from the era's limited field medicine kits, checked them for diseases. Clean girls only, he barked in broken Korean, injecting those with symptoms with whatever sulfa drugs were available, though infections spread anyway from the lack of proper hygiene. By 8 a.m., the soldiers arrived. Gayen's small room had thin walls, a single mat, and a bucket in the corner. The door opened repeatedly. Some men were rough, grabbing her arms, leaving bruises. Others silent, mechanical. She learned to dissociate, staring at a crack in the ceiling while counting breaths. "It will end today," she whispered to herself each time, but days turned to weeks. On average, she endured 20 to 30 men daily, more when fresh troops rotated in from nearby fronts. The weapons of the era Arisaka rifles slung over shoulders, Type 14 pistols at belts, reminded her constantly of the power imbalance. No girl dared resist openly. One who tried, a 18-year-old named Suman, was dragged outside and beaten with rifle butts until she could not stand. She disappeared the next day. Twists came in small, cruel forms. In June 1941, a kind-hearted Korean interpreter slipped extra rice to GAN and whispered warnings about patrols. He risked his life for these acts, knowing discovery meant execution. "Hold on," he said once, eyes averted, but he vanished after 2 months. Rumor said transferred or worse. Another twist. In late 1942, the station moved deeper into occupied China due to advancing Allied threats. The girls were loaded onto trucks at night, guarded by soldiers with bayonets fixed. The journey lasted days over rough roads, with stops where local Chinese villagers stared in silence. One night, during a breakdown, Gian overheard guards discussing the war's turning points. Battles in the Pacific, Losses at Midway, though she understood little beyond the growing tension in their voices. Heroics emerged in quiet defiance. Gian and 3 others, Minji, Hairin, and a Chinese girl named Mei, formed a silent bond. They shared scraps of food, tended each other's wounds with torn cloth, and told stories of home to keep spirits alive. Minji, who had been a schoolteacher's daughter, taught basic words in secret. "One day we walk free," she said. When a soldier grew violent with Hairin, Jian distracted him by feigning illness, earning a slap but saving her friend from worse. These small acts, passing notes under mats, humming old Korean songs softly, became acts of resistance. Losses mounted. In 1943, during a harsh winter, infections claimed the girls. Their bodies were wrapped in mats and left outside for disposal. Sumin, the one beaten earlier, returned briefly but died from internal injuries. Jian held her hand as she faded, whispering apologies for not doing more. Technology and weapons appeared in everyday terror. Soldiers carried Nambu pistols and katana swords. Some boasted of victories using Type 99 machine guns or mortar from the front lines. The comfort station had a radio that crackled with propaganda broadcasts, praising the Empire's advances. Though by 1944, the tone shifted to defensive reports. Medical technology was primitive mercury-based ointments for venereal diseases, forced abortions with crude tools when pregnancies occurred. Jian endured one such procedure in agony, nearly bleeding out. Guards used barbed wire fences and watchtowers to prevent escapes. Spotlights from military vehicles swept the perimeter at night. In early 1945, as Allied forces pushed closer, the atmosphere changed. Soldiers grew frantic, drinking heavily from sake bottles. Beatings increased. Gehen noticed fewer new troops arriving. Many spoke of retreats. One night in March, during an air raid alert though no bombs fell nearby, the girls were herded into a bunker. In the darkness, May whispered a plan. "When they run, we run." Jian nodded, heart pounding. On August 15th, 1945. At dawn, the radio in the officers' quarters blared static, then an announcement in Japanese. The guards froze. Emperor Hirohito's voice, broadcast for the first time, declared surrender. Chaos erupted. Soldiers shouted. Some wept. Others smashed equipment. Papers burned in barrels. Records, perhaps, of the station's operations. The women were left unguarded for the first time in years. Jihan, Minji, Hairin, and Mei slipped from their rooms. They moved silently past the main gate, where sentries had fled. Outside, the rural Chinese landscape stretched fields, distant hills. They ran, bare feet on dirt paths, hearts racing. Gunshots echoed behind, perhaps soldiers firing in despair, or executing stragglers. The 4 hid in a ditch as a truck roared past, filled with retreating troops clutching rifles and packs. They traveled for days, surviving on wild berries and water from streams. Kind Chinese farmers, risking their own safety, gave them rice and pointed directions toward liberated areas. One farmer, an older man with weathered hands, sheltered them for 2 nights. "The Japanese are gone," I sighed softly. "Go home." May parted ways near a village, tears in her eyes. She had survived by clinging to memories of family. The 3 Koreans pressed on, hitching rides on carts, walking when needed. Gayen reached a refugee processing point near the border in late August. Allied forces, Chinese nationalists, and later others registered survivors. Medical teams provided basic care, bandages, antibiotics. Unavailable, food rations. Many women, broken physically and emotionally, spoke little. Gaehan learned of mass repatriations. Ships would carry Koreans home. The journey back took weeks. On a crowded ship in September 1945, Gaehan stood on deck, watching the Chinese coast fade. Mingi and Hyrin held her hands. "We made it," Hyrin whispered. But the victory felt hollow. Body scarred, minds haunted by memories, the daily humiliations, the lost friends, the innocents stolen. Gaehan returned to a village near Busan in October 1945. Her parents had searched for years, believing her dead after the note and disappearance. The reunion was tearful. Her mother embraced her, saying nothing at first, but society shunned many returnees. Whispers followed, damaged goods, shamed. Gaehan married quietly years later, bore children, but nightmares persisted. She spoke to no one of those years until decades passed. The lesson carved deepest. Survival demands endurance beyond imagination. In the face of systemic cruelty, not random, but organized human spirit can cling to small resistances. A shared glance, a hidden song, a vow to remember. Gaehan learned that silence protects no one. Truth, though painful, honors the lost. She carried the weight of those who did not return. Sumin, the unnamed Chinese girls, the countless others, understanding that forgetting invites repetition. The war ended, but the battle for dignity continued in quiet lives rebuilt from fragments. In time, as testimonies emerged publicly starting in 1991, Gaehan recognized her story in others. She never sought spotlight, but her survival became part of a larger record, proof that even in darkness, some endure to bear witness. The lesson was simple yet profound. Oppression crushes bodies, but cannot erase the will to live, to remember, to hope for justice. Gaehan lived the rest of her life quietly in her village near Busan. She raised 2 children, worked long hours in a small sewing workshop, and rarely spoke of the years between 1941 and 1945. The scars remained chronic, pain in her lower abdomen, recurring nightmares, a deep silence when family gatherings turned to wartime memories. Yet she carried on. She taught her daughter to read, saved every spare one for her son's schooling, and kept a small photograph of her parents tucked inside her sewing box. Time dulled the sharpest edges of memory, but never erased them. Decades passed. In the early 1990s, when the first survivor stepped forward in Seoul to speak publicly, Gaehan watched the news in silence. She recognized the pain in the woman's eyes, the careful choice of words. Over the following years, more voices emerged, testimonies recorded, books published, memorials built. Gaehan never joined the public demonstrations or gave interviews. She felt her story belonged to the quiet moments, lighting incense on anniversaries, visiting the sea alone, whispering names of the girls who never came home. She passed away in the spring of 2008, surrounded by her grandchildren. On a bedside table lay a single folded letter she had written years earlier but never sent. It began, "To my family, I survived so you would not have to carry this alone." The comfort women's experiences remain part of the painful record of the Second World War in Asia. A chapter of immense suffering endured by tens of thousands of women and girls, mostly from Korea and China, under Japanese military control. Their survival was not a victory in the traditional sense, but an act of endurance that outlasted the regime that sought to erase their humanity. I've just said what's recorded in history. You should find out the real truth yourself. We have written the sources from which we got this story in the description of this video. And we have always been and will be supporters of the oppressed, regardless of their color, race, or country. This world and its creator are also with the oppressed. Like this video if it moved you. Comment your thoughts below. What lessons do these forgotten stories teach us today? Subscribe and turn on notifications for more untold WWII stories that history tried to bury. See you in the next WWII story.